Jokic is being charged with assault in the third degree, knowingly, reckless bodily injury, too. According to court documents, Jokic said he felt he did nothing wrong because he was, quote, defending an older man that he's known for a long time.
High IQ and entertainment. For me, that's just being weak.
When you start talking about the NBA, people forget these are grown men. People have kids.
Luka Doncic just embarrassed Dennis Schröder, and the entire NBA can't stop talking about it. After all that trash talk back in December, Schroder strutted through the tunnel like he was ready to finally face Luka face to face. Big mistake. What Dennis didn't realize was that this whole thing had already grown way beyond him. The cameras only showed the calm, sanitized version that the NBA released. But insiders say the real story behind that hallway drama was way more explosive. Luka wasn't strolling down those hallways alone either. The people who rolled with him weren't random buddies or security guards. These were well-known figures in league circles, people with serious pull. Once you hear what went down next, the whole encounter hits completely differently. Before we even talk about the game or that hallway moment, you gotta understand, this wasn't just some emotional flare-up that got out of hand. This was personal. Two players sitting at totally different levels of the NBA ladder, somehow ending up in the same face-off. That power gap between them, that's exactly why things got so tense so fast. Dennis has always played with that fire. He came into the league fast, fearless, and confident, convinced he belonged among the best. To be fair, he really built a solid career from that attitude. He's been a starter, a sixth man, and he's shown up big in playoff games. But at the same time, his career has been anything but stable. He's jumped from the Hawks to the Thunder, then to the Lakers, the Celtics, the Rockets, back to the Lakers, and later bounced to the Raptors, Nets, Warriors, Pistons, and now the Kings. That's a crazy amount of jerseys in just a few years. When you're constantly moving like that, it's hard to feel grounded, hard to really make your mark. Every new team becomes another tryout, and every opponent feels like a test you have to pass. That's exactly why Dennis plays like a man with something to prove. Always fighting for respect in rooms he's been invited into but never truly owned. Even fans have caught on. Dennis Schröder's whole reputation screams journeyman, and it's not hard to see why. But here's the real issue. His mouth moves way faster than his resume ever did. Dennis talks like he's some unstoppable all-star, but his numbers tell a different story. He's quick, he's scrappy, and yeah, he competes hard, but dominant, not even close. He's never been the best player on a winning team or the kind of guy a franchise builds everything around, yet he talks like he's been that guy his whole career. And that gap between his talk and his actual status? That's where all the chaos starts. Remember his beef with Kevin Durant? It all began when Dennis got too personal during international games, and he carried that same energy straight into NBA matchups, like he couldn't let it go. Ask around the league and you'll hear it over and over. Teammates and opponents alike describe him as someone who brings way too much heat to moments that don't even need it. He turns routine tension into full-on drama, and people are tired of it. Now, when you line that up next to Luka Doncic, the difference is wild. Luka came into the NBA with a giant target on his back, a young European kid with sky-high confidence and that smooth old-school game that made veterans look silly from day one. Players went after him hard. Full court pressure, trash talk, physical play, trying to see if he'd crack. But Luka's response, always the same. He'd smile, cook them on the court, and talk back just enough to sting, all while staying completely in control. His trash talk doesn't have to be loud or wild because he lets his game do the talking first. Once he's got you on the ropes, that's when he drops a line that hits right where it hurts. And that's why it sticks. And here's the thing, Luka doesn't even look like someone you can push around. He's bigger than people realize, plays through heavy contact, and when things get rough, he doesn't fall apart. He levels up. That calm, almost unbothered confidence Luka Doncic carries drives opponents absolutely crazy, especially players already frustrated and looking to prove something. Like Dennis Schröder, that's exactly where their beef really started. On the surface, it looked like just another heated NBA moment, two competitors jawing at each other, right? But when you dig into their history, it's obvious this was never going to stay just on the court. You've got one player who's used to being tested and shutting people down with pure dominance, and another who's been fighting his whole career for respect that never quite sticks. When those two mindsets crash into each other, there's no cooling off. It spills over. Now fast forward to December 28th last year, Lakers versus Kings. Pure chaos waiting to explode. Luka showed everyone exactly why he's basically untouchable. He dropped 34 points, dished out 7 assists, grabbed 5 rebounds, nailed 5 threes, and threw in a couple of steals just to remind everyone who runs the show. He completely owned the court. Total control, total confidence. Meanwhile, Dennis was out there grinding but not getting the results he wanted. 11 points, 7 assists, and a rough plus-minus that told the real story. He looked frustrated, tight, and just plain angry. The scoreboard didn't lie, and that's peak Dennis energy. You could feel his frustration building while Luka was just toying with him. Calm, collected, and absolutely running the game. Then came the moment where things took a turn. Dennis, clearly fed up, made the worst move he could have made. He walked right up to Luka and told him he'd beat the par out of him. But he clearly forgot who he was dealing with. Right in the middle of the third quarter, Luka fired back with a line that left fans' jaws on the floor. The kind of comment that instantly becomes NBA legend. This wasn't Luka being playful or cocky. This was straight up mental warfare. See, years back when Dennis was with the Lakers, word was he had a 4-year, $84 million extension on the table. A massive deal that would have locked him in as their lead guard. A stable role, big paycheck, real security, the full package. But what Luka said next made that entire missed opportunity sting all over again. But Dennis didn't take that deal. Maybe he thought he could cash in for more, or maybe he wanted a bigger spotlight. Either way, he walked away from $84 million like it was nothing. Fast forward to December 2025 and the story looks way different. Dennis is now with the Kings, stuck on a struggling squad, miles away from the kind of stage he could have been on, while Luka's out there casually dropping 34 points like it's another day at the office. And if that wasn't enough salt in the wound, professional lip readers who broke down the footage claimed Luka leaned in mid-game and said, Can you imagine hearing that while you're getting torched on the court? It was pure confidence, no hesitation, no mercy. And the wild part? Luka said it while winning. Every time Luka made a move, you could see Dennis getting more and more frustrated, slapping the floor, throwing looks, trying to rattle him. But nothing worked. Luka was too calm, too locked in. And honestly, if this thing had turned into an actual fight on the court, it would have been a disaster for Dennis. Luka's 6 feet 7 inches, built solid like a tank, and Dennis is barely 6 feet. There's no world where that ends well for him. Luka's been going toe-to-toe with stronger, taller defenders his entire career, and still makes them look silly. This wasn't even David versus Goliath, because in this case, Dennis wasn't David, Luka was Goliath. Meanwhile, the Kings were tanking hard, sitting at something like 8-24, while the Lakers were finally bouncing back from a bad stretch. The tension was thick, and every possession felt personal, but here's the twist hardly anyone caught. Apparently the Jokic brothers, Strahinja and Nemanja, were in LA that night supporting Luka, who's close friends with their brother Nikola Jokic. By the time the final buzzer sounded, the scoreboard told the whole story, and the Lakers blew the Kings out. But that wasn't the end, not even close. This game had been brewing like a powder keg all night, and when that buzzer went off, it was ready to explode. Dennis couldn't just let it go. His pride wouldn't allow it. He had to step up, had to make some kind of statement. But what he didn't realize was that the universe, in the form of Luka and the Jokic brothers, had already written a completely different ending. You really thought the drama stopped when the buzzer hit? Think again. Nah, that game wasn't the end of the drama. That was just the opening act. Around 40 minutes after the Kings locker room cleared out, Dennis Schröder made what might go down as one of the worst decisions of his career. Still fuming from the blowout, he started storming down the hallway, clearly thinking he was about to have a face-to-face showdown with Luka Doncic. According to multiple reports, Dennis wasn't holding back at all. He allegedly shouted something like, "You can't call me out on the court and act cool after." In plain words, he wanted to let Luka know he wasn't about to let him talk trash in front of the whole arena and just walk away like nothing happened. The ego in that moment, off the charts. You could practically feel it through the walls. But here's where things start to twist. The media made it sound like Dennis just tried to lunge at Luka and that was it. That's the nice, tidy version the NBA ran with. Officially, he got hit with a 3-game suspension and almost $300,000 in fines. $292,000 to be exact. Most fans thought that was the end of the story, but that was only the part the NBA wanted you to hear, because what really went down in that hallway was way more intense. This wasn't just Dennis being mad, he actually made a move, and that's when everything got wild. That's when the unspoken enforcers of the night stepped in. Schroder and Nikola Jokic, the older brothers of Nikola Jokic himself. Now let's pause right there. Anyone who knows the Jokic brothers knows these guys don't play around. They've got a reputation for being extremely protective, especially when it comes to family or close friends. And since Luka and Nikola are tight, the brothers were right there ready to stand up for him. Eyewitnesses say the scene was surreal. Dennis came storming in, all attitude and adrenaline, convinced he could just walk up on Luka and talk big. But before he could even get close, Schroder and Nemanja moved in like a wall. Massive, calm, and clearly not there to talk. The whole vibe shifted instantly. Dennis realized real quick this wasn't some one-on-one moment anymore. It was 3 against 1, and he was way outmatched. According to insiders, voices got loud, things got heated fast, and within seconds, Dennis had no choice but to back off. The hallway went from tense to silent in an instant. Everyone watching knew that Dennis had just stepped into something way bigger than basketball. That hallway was supposed to be Dennis Schroder's big moment, where he finally stood up to Luka Doncic and showed him what's up. But instead, it turned into the spot where he got completely humbled and walked off with his pride shattered. Eyewitnesses literally said he ran off with his tail between his legs. And that's exactly how it looked. The Jokic brothers didn't just step in. They took control of that hallway like professionals. They handled it so cleanly that insiders are now saying Luka's camp is seriously considering hiring Schroder and Nemanja Jokic as his personal bodyguards. And honestly, after seeing how fast they shut Dennis down, who wouldn't want them on their side? Meanwhile, DeAndre Ayton and arena security were right there trying to keep things from turning into an all-out brawl. Ayton reportedly stepped between both sides, acting as a human shield while the Jokic brothers calmly moved into position, making sure Dennis couldn't even think about lunging at Luka again. Security followed protocol like pros, but insiders made it clear the real jaw-dropping moment was just how quickly the Jokic brothers neutralized the entire situation. Now here's where it gets interesting. The NBA's official disciplinary action didn't quite add up. Dennis got slapped with a 3-game suspension and a $291,807 fine, but a bunch of NBA analysts immediately pointed out something didn't line up. Normally, a suspension that long only happens when there's actual contact or clear intent to hit someone, not just a heated argument or a missed swing. That's why fans and insiders started connecting the dots.
Luka challenged him.
The league's version of the story looked like a cover-up, protecting Dennis's reputation in public while quietly admitting behind the scenes that he did take a shot at Luka. It was like the NBA wanted to smooth things over fast, keep the headlines quiet, and move on. But the details told another story. And to make things even messier, Dennis didn't do himself any favors afterward. Right after the league posted their official statement, he jumped into the comments section, laughing at how they described it as just an attempt. That move said it all. His reaction practically confirmed that what happened went way beyond a harmless attempt. The league might have tried to keep it quiet, but Dennis's own response gave the whole truth away. So by the time the league made the suspension official, the public only saw the tip of the iceberg. The headlines were simple. Schroder attempted to strike Luka, 3-game suspension, done and dusted. But behind the scenes, insiders say the real story hit Dennis's pride way harder than any fine ever could. He tried to confront Luka mid-season, thinking he'd make a statement, and ended up getting completely humbled in front of everyone who mattered. Now let's talk about the Jokic brothers, because they're the real reason this story got wild. Everyone knows Nikola Jokic as the calm, soft-spoken MVP, polite, low-key, always in control, but the men around him, totally different vibe. Schroder and Nemanja Jokic are not just random guys hanging around looking tough. They're built different. These are real-life Balkan beasts, and the stories about them prove it. Let's start with Schroder. His whole track record screams, "Don't mess with people I care about." He's fiercely loyal, and the receipts are out there for everyone to see. Remember what happened back in April 2024, Game 2 of the Nuggets playoff series against the Lakers. A fan in the stands supposedly said something slick to him, and before anyone could blink, Schroder was literally climbing over rows of seats like he was in an action movie. Then, bam! He punched the guy straight in the face. Reports said the fan walked away with a concussion, cuts, and even a deviated septum. Yeah, that's how intense Schroder can get when someone crosses the line. The video blew up instantly online, and soon after, he was charged with third-degree assault. A restraining order followed, and by October 2025, he pled down to lesser charges, trespassing and disorderly conduct, and getting a year of probation instead of jail time.
Yeah, I don't think there was an attempt. There was a successful, I don't know if it's open hand, but he got to Luka Doncic. And to be honest with you, you don't get 3 games for like running around in a hallway. That's not what you get 3 games for.
That same fire, that same don't test me mentality is exactly what he brought into that hallway with Dennis and Luka. It wasn't some random scuffle. It was Schroder doing what he always does, protecting his people, no hesitation. Now, let's bring Nemanja into the story. He's the quieter one. Not as flashy or loud as Schroder, which is probably why he doesn't go viral as often. But don't get it twisted. When things get serious, Nemanja's presence alone is enough to shift the whole room. Together, those two are like an unshakable force. And that night, Dennis Schröder learned that the hard way. But make no mistake, the Jokic brothers move as one. Schroder and Nemanja back Nikola to the bone. And if you ever cross him, you're not just dealing with one man, you're taking on the entire family. These two have made it crystal clear, loyalty runs deep, and anyone who disrespects Nikola might as well be lighting a fuse. The best example, back in 2021, during that heated Nuggets versus Heat game when Nikola Jokic clashed with Markieff Morris. Things got chippy fast, both guys got ejected, and it seemed like the tension would fade after that. But the Jokic brothers had other plans. Even though they weren't on social media before, Schroder and Nemanja went online, made brand new accounts, and straight up called out the Morris twins publicly. Their message couldn't have been clearer. If you're messing with Nikola, you're messing with us too. That post shook the NBA world. Fans went crazy, players noticed, and even the Morris twins talked about it on a podcast, half joking, half serious, saying they'd box the Jokic brothers. But underneath the jokes, they showed real respect for their reputation. Everyone around the league knows you do not casually tangle with those two. Their presence alone demands respect, and maybe a little fear. Now, no, they're not official MMA fighters, at least not professionally, but don't get it twisted. These guys train, they lift, and they know how to handle themselves. In some underground circles, people even say they've stepped into real martial arts sparring sessions. That's why when Dennis Schröder crossed paths with them that night, he learned a lesson the hard way. Choose your fights wisely. Because if DeAndre Ayton hadn't been there to hold that line between the two sides, things could have gotten real ugly, real fast. The Jokic brothers were ready to protect Luka at all costs, and Dennis had no idea just how serious that could have gotten. Let's be real, Dennis's name in the NBA has always sparked debate. Some fans love his fiery attitude, others roll their eyes and call it fake toughness. But after that hallway incident with Luka, all those quiet whispers about him suddenly got dragged into the open. That moment didn't just expose his temper, it peeled back the layers on who Dennis really is and how the league truly sees him now. That hallway moment with Luka Doncic wasn't just some random embarrassment. It was another chapter in a much bigger story that's been building around Dennis Schröder for years. Because when you talk about a player whose attitude both on and off the court gets under people's skin, it always leads back to one thing: drama. And one of his most talked about feuds? The unforgettable Schroder versus Kevin Durant beef. It all started after the 2024 Paris Olympics. Dennis, feeling himself after Germany's strong showing, decided to speak his mind about the difference between European basketball and the NBA.
Here at 5, we're learning Nikola Jokic's brother has been criminally charged in that brawl at a Nuggets game back in April. Schroder Jokic is being charged with assault in the 3rd degree, knowingly, reckless bodily injury too. According to court documents, Jokic said he felt he did nothing wrong because he was, quote, defending an older man that he's known for a long time.
He said European hoops were straight IQ basketball. They'd built on smart play and teamwork, while the NBA was all about entertainment. That one comment sent shockwaves everywhere. You just don't hear an active NBA player roast the league he plays in, especially while hyping up another system. Of course, it didn't take long for one of the biggest names in the game to respond, Kevin Durant, a 14-time All-Star, an MVP, multiple Olympic golds, and one of the most respected scorers ever. Right after Team USA won gold, KD posted a photo holding his medal with the caption, "Entertainment and IQ." No names mentioned, but everyone knew who that was aimed at. NBA Twitter exploded instantly. The timing, the phrasing, the attitude, it was all too perfect. But instead of letting it go or laughing it off, Dennis doubled down. He hopped on Twitch, went live, and called Kevin Durant weak as a person. He didn't just talk basketball, he took it personal. Fans couldn't believe it. Why would a player without a superstar resume go after a legend like KD so openly? That's not confidence, that's ego. The same ego that pushed him to trash talk Luka, thinking he could rattle one of the coldest players in the league. Dennis's pattern is clear. When things get heated, he doesn't step back. He leans in. He's got that chip on the shoulder energy that makes him swing up at the biggest names in the game. But there's a fine line between fearless and reckless, and Dennis keeps walking right past it. And now, with Luka dominating the court the way he is, putting up video game numbers and running entire teams off the floor, it's wild that Dennis still thought he could go toe-to-toe with him. That hallway moment wasn't random at all. It was just Dennis being Dennis, chasing validation from battles he can't actually win. Even LeBron James wouldn't come at Kevin Durant the way Dennis Schroder did. And that's saying something. But that whole KD feud, that's just one slice of the bigger story.
So then they won, and Kevin Durant tweet, "High IQ and entertainment." For me, that's just being weak.
The real reason so many people side-eye Dennis isn't just about the trash talk, it's about his career path. The classic NBA journeyman story. A player constantly moving, never finding a real home, always trying to prove himself all over again. Dennis has bounced around the league like he's on an endless road trip with no destination. He started with the Atlanta Hawks back in 2013. 5 solid years, good numbers, some flashes of brilliance, but never quite the guy a team could build around. Then came 2018 when he got shipped to the Thunder, looking for a shot to prove he could run the show. In 2020, the Lakers called, and suddenly the lights were bright and the expectations were higher than ever. For a moment, it felt like this might finally be his breakout stage. But after that, the carousel started spinning fast. Celtics in 2021, Rockets in 2022, and back to the Lakers later that same season. At that point, it was like, can this man ever catch a break? Then came the Raptors in 2023, the Nets in 2024, Golden State in 2024 to 25, and now the Kings. 10 teams in just 12 years. That's wild. Every new city feels like another test, another chance to prove he belongs somewhere. You can almost feel the weight on him, like every game's an audition he can't afford to mess up. But here's the thing, Dennis's NBA story isn't one of dominance or building a dynasty. It's about movement. He's become what fans jokingly call the league's human trade piece. Always the guy included in a deal, never the guy a team builds around. It's harsh, but that's the truth. People online even joke that Dennis doesn't pack luggage anymore. He just keeps it ready. And here's where it gets ironic. Dennis once called the NBA trade deadline modern slavery, saying players have no control over where they go or how they're used. He literally said it out loud, and then it kept happening to him again and again. It's like his own words came back to haunt him in real time. But the league has its own rules. It doesn't like players who act like alpha dogs without the superstar resume to back it up. And that's the problem with Dennis. He's got the confidence of an MVP, but not the accolades to match. No all-NBA selections, no deep playoff runs as the lead guy, just a string of short stays and what-ifs. And that, right there, is why his story hits so differently. It's not just about talent, it's about timing, ego, and everything that comes with chasing a spotlight that never quite stays on you. And even though Dennis Schroder puts up decent stats, most fans still see him as that energy and hustle guy, not a true superstar. He's got that spark, sure, but not the shine that sticks. But internationally, oh, it's a whole different story. In Germany and across Europe, Dennis is treated like a hero. He's the captain of their national team, the face of German basketball, the guy. But once he's back in the NBA, that spotlight fades fast. He turns from captain to just another solid player fighting for respect. And that's exactly why fans reacted the way they did when this whole Luka hallway story broke. It wasn't just about that one night. It was about everything Dennis represents. The internet went absolutely wild. NBA Twitter was in flames. Memes, debates, and threads everywhere. But it wasn't just fans. Even NBA players had something to say. Iman Shumpert jumped in, calling out how wild it was for Dennis to think he could just walk up to Luka like that and not face any fallout.
When you start talking about the NBA, people forget these are grown men. People have kids.
Fans even started doing side-by-side comparisons with classic NBA chaos moments. From Ron Artest and that infamous Malice at the Palace brawl, to Rasheed Wallace throwing locker room shade, to Draymond Green clashing with his own teammates. But here's the key difference. All those players had numbers and impact to back it up. They were stars who changed games even when they lost their cool. Dennis? He's got heart, no doubt. But he's not in that same category, and that's exactly why this story hit the way it did. It wasn't just drama, it was a reality check. So yeah, that's the chaos in a nutshell. Dennis thought he could storm that hallway and go at Luka, but instead, he got checked, fast and hard. That moment wasn't random. It was years of ego, tension, and frustration all crashing together in one place. So now I've gotta ask you, if you were in that hallway, who would you side with and why? Drop your thoughts down below. I'm reading all the comments. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and share button if you're loving the content. And trust me, we've got more wild NBA stories coming soon, so make sure those notifications are on. See you in the next one.